best way to find out a belief that's running you in some way is by noticing your triggers. Notice the buttons that people push.
Do you still get triggered?
Once in a great while, not like I used to be.
I love this concept of mirroring.
The expression somebody said, you spot it, you got it.
Yeah.
So if I'm pointing the finger at you, that what I'm really doing is seeing something about myself and pointing the finger at me.
Is there anything that we can do for the people that we love and that we care about, who we see them living that? We see them get constantly triggered and we want to help them. We want to, shake them and let them know like what's happening. In this episode, I'm joined by Royce Morales, a renowned spiritual trailblazer who has a transformational approach that she's been teaching for over 4 decades. Her work helps people uncover and clear deep-rooted, disempowering beliefs, shift self-sabotaging patterns, and live from a place of love, purpose, and intuitive guidance. Royce guides individuals to reset their lives and step into authentic empowerment. Her teachings have impacted thousands, from psychologists and teachers to parents and coaches, and she shares even more wisdom on her 2 podcasts, The Perfect Life Awakening Show and It's All Mirrors on Om Times Media. Enjoy this interview with Royce Morales. How can people recognize the subconscious beliefs that are holding them back?
Oh, that's a big question. I find that it might sound strange, but the best way to find out a belief that's running you in some way is by noticing your triggers. Notice the buttons that people push. Um, if you find yourself having a judgmental thought or a reaction that's kind of out of character, that something has been triggered, and it always sources back to some sort of subconscious belief that we just are allowing to run our lives in some way, sabotage us in some way. And those subconscious beliefs go really deep. The work that I do with people locates the origins, because once you locate the origin and what I refer to as neutralizing it, that belief no longer has power over you. And you can be in the same situation that triggered you previously, and there's no trigger. You just notice, oh, wow, that's interesting. So, yeah, those buttons and triggers are big signs to have us wake up and see something's going on.
So if you no longer get a trigger, does that mean that that belief has been let go of?
It's neutralized. I know for me and my students, sometimes we just notice that, wow, gosh, previously I would have had a much bigger reaction to what that person said or being in that situation. So you're still kind of aware of it, but it doesn't have that pull. It doesn't have that effect. So yeah, in essence, it's neutralized. That's the best word for it. Yeah.
Do you still get triggered?
Once in a great while, not like I used to be. I mean, I was triggered all the time, and the funny, sad part of it is I never realized I was triggered. I just thought this is how I deal with life, or this is who I am. And I was very, very unconscious about what was going on deep within until I started looking, until I started digging. I just thought, well, that's the way it is, you know?
I'm trying to think of the last time that I was triggered, and it's interesting because I want to get clear for the listeners of what that feels like and what that looks like. I know for me, I can speak from my own experience. If I start to feel a little bit of anger or upset, someone says something and it's not intentionally meant to hurt me or make me feel any type of negative way, but yet I feel some type of negative way in my body. And
Yeah.
that's what sheds light on it for me. But how would you explain what a trigger is to the listener and how they can really recognize what theirs are?
Yeah, anger is a real big clue, but I find that judgmental thoughts or like, oh gosh, I can't believe they said that to me, self-righteousness, need to be right, sadness, even hopelessness, all of those quote negative emotions are showing you that you're triggered. It's not always that big reactive blow up that we think it is. It can be very subtle, or even just wanting to leave a situation. Well, I'm out of here, you know. Um, but I would say, at least for me, judgmental thoughts are the biggest way for me to see that I've been triggered.
What's a common trigger that you see and the subconscious belief that you can trace it back to?
I find that the very deepest core of our triggering comes down to the fact that we don't feel deserving. There's a part of us that is carrying so much guilt and so many beliefs that say, oh, you're a bad person, or you did this thing and you can never be forgiven. Those are the core, those are the bottom line issues that run us. And it's really hard for us to get in touch with those because part of us has suppressed them. Part of us has denied or even forgotten that we did those things. You know, it's kind of like I call it mirroring. And basically, what mirroring is that, let's say we're 2 years old and we hit our brother because he took our toy. So instead of listening to our higher consciousness, even at the age of 2, we choose to buy into our fear and do something that's hurtful. So from that experience, we decide certain things about ourselves, like I'm violent, I'm bad, I don't deserve toys, I don't deserve love from my brother, I don't deserve approval. You know, there's a ton of decisions that we make about ourselves from that particular incident, even as far back as the birth experience and previous lives. And then our lower consciousness, so to speak, our primitive mind, turns that into, well, you were justified because he took your toy. So from then on, we kind of suppress it. We deny that what we did was quote wrong, and we live our lives based on a belief that says I don't deserve. The biggest belief we have is that we don't deserve love. Um, we arrive here as loving, higher consciousness beings until we're triggered by fear. And from that fear, we choose to take action instead of, wow, I guess I can be okay without that toy. And I love my brother. And if he wants that toy, fine. So instead of doing that, we choose to take an action that causes pain or loss. And like I said, from then on, we don't deserve. We don't deserve to be here. We don't deserve love. We don't deserve anything. Excuse me. And it just goes further and further and deeper into our life until we're functioning from a place of non deservingness on every level.
And that's because it feels familiar to us.
Yeah, it feels familiar, and that's what we believe we deserve. You know, that's the way it is for us. Oh well. And all of this is going on subconsciously. We're not in touch with it at all until we start peeling away and doing some digging and see what's really going on and why we can't manifest and why every relationship goes away and why we sabotage success. All of those things start showing up in our lives to show us the mirror of our lack of deservingness. Yeah.
I love this concept of mirroring that you talk about.
Yes.
And let me see if I can get it right. So basically, if you have a belief that's subconsciously embedded in you, then it's going to show up in different people and different things that you do. It's going to present itself and show you that it's inside of you. And
Yes.
that's how you're able to reflect on it.
Yeah. And the image that I use that really helps to explain it in a very basic way is, imagine a seesaw. You've got this seesaw, and one side of the seesaw gets pushed down. The other side has to come up. So if we're pushing something down, if I have a belief that says I don't deserve, and I'm pushing that down and acting like I'm, you know, this very deserving, very successful person, that belief is going to show up in my life in some way because I'm pushing down energy. You can't push down energy. It's a law of the universe. It has to show up somewhere. So I'll have people arrive in my life that push my buttons all the time. You know, they'll say things like, well, you're not really smart, or, you know, they'll infer things or whatever it is that they do to show me that belief that's hiding that I've pushed down. And instead of recognizing it, I get pissed at them and I push them out of my life or I leave the situation instead of realizing, wow, they're showing me a mirror of my beliefs about myself. Thank you so much. Because they are our best teachers. They are our awakeners. So thank those mirrors.
Mhm.
Nobody ever likes them, but thank them.
Yes, it's our biggest tool for growth, I
They
feel.
are, yes, and healing. Yeah.
How does mirroring show up in relationships and how can it help heal them?
I would say that there are probably a few people in our lives that are our best mirrors. First, people are our parents. They are just the best. Our children and our intimate relationships, because they're in our face with our mirrors. Um, I found, gosh, I married my husband. We've been married, gosh, 39 years. And probably the first year of my marriage, I just thought, wow, this was just such an amazing person he loves me, he cares about me. It's great, it's beautiful. And then all of a sudden, he started being my mirror. Darn it. And he started doing things like getting angry all the time. This is a very kind, loving, gentle man. And I would look at him and I'd go, what? Why are you so angry? What's going on here? I mean, he would be punching out walls. And finally, I realized he was my mirror and he was showing me my entire life. I had been suppressing my anger. And when I started to get in touch with all of that suppressed anger, and of course, what I realized was I was really angry at myself. He was just mirroring that. And when I started to release that and neutralize that and find origins of that, guess what? He stopped punching out walls. It was absolutely, again, kind of leveling out the seesaw and getting in touch with what I was suppressing could allow him to stop being angry. So relationships are incredible mirrors for us. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, you said that your anger was with yourself. So when he expressed his anger, was it to himself or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. Yeah. He was just being my mirror. And sure, of course, he has things to look at on his end, but that's not my job. My job is to look at my end of the mirror, just look at that mirror, what's being reflected. Yeah.
I've heard, and you can tell me if this is true to you, that we can't see something unless it's in ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, the expression somebody said, you spot it, you got it.
Yeah.
So if I'm pointing the finger at you, that what I'm really doing is seeing something about myself and pointing the finger at me. So yeah, it's powerful. It really is.
So the first step to recognizing these would be to look at your triggers when they happen
Yes.
in the moment.
And to recognize them. Sometimes like I said about myself, I didn't think I was triggered. I
Mhm.
just thought, well, this is how life is. But I was triggered all the time. And to recognize a trigger sometimes is challenging for people because they're so suppressed. I wasn't in touch with any of my anger, any of my emotions. I was just gliding through life trying to survive. And now I realize, oh my God, I was triggered and angry and sad and hopeless and pissed off and judgmental all the time. So, yeah, that's the first step. And you can feel it in your body and you can notice it in your thoughts. Like I said, the judgmental thoughts or that person is stupid thoughts, those kind of things. That's what's showing you that you're triggered.
Is there anything that we can do for the people that we love and that we care about who we see them living that? We see them get constantly triggered and we want to help them. We want to, shake them and let them know like what's happening.
Oh, that's such a good question. People get it when they get it. Even when somebody has taken my courses, they still may not wake up until they're ready. All I can do is give out information. And I find that in a close relationship or somebody that you care about in that way, it's better to be a model of it. So if you're noticing that your friend is really suppressing their emotions and it's so clear to you what's going on, the best thing you can possibly do is be in touch with your emotions and come from love about that. Share from a place of authenticity and um, emotion if you need to. And they may get it and they may not, but you're planting a seed that says, look, I'm doing this and it's okay. You can do it too. Yeah, but pointing stuff like that out to people generally doesn't work.
Are these subconscious beliefs the same thing as limiting beliefs?
Oh, yeah, they're very limiting. Yeah, they sabotage us, they stop us, they prevent us from manifesting what we want. They're running our lives all the time. They limit us in every single way. They limit our joy, you know. That's probably the saddest thing that they do. They don't allow us to really feel our joy. I find that if we it sounds kind of like a strange duality, but if we don't let ourselves feel our the opposite, the anger, the sadness, the hopelessness, we are definitely limiting and suppressing our joy and our happiness and our aliveness. So yeah, they go hand in hand. It's like another seesaw. Push that down and nothing can come up. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's say we recognized it and we see our triggers. How do we clear that?
Well, that's the work that I do with people. Because it goes deep, it's one thing to get it on a superficial level, which is great. So if I notice that I'm judging you right now and I get in touch with, oh gosh, I'm judging myself. I don't like red polka dot blouses and I would never wear one. So I'm noticing, first of all, noticing that, gee, I guess I'm triggered by her red polka dot blouse. What is that about? And I can do a quick little process, so to speak, in my mind to see what that's about. Well, red polka dot symbolizes silliness. Okay, so do I believe that I'm silly and I'm suppressing my silliness? Yes. Okay, there, got it. A lot of it resolved just from seeing that superficial level. But to really neutralize it, you've got to get to the source. So I've got to find out where I decided that I'm silly and it's not okay, or I did something harmful with my silliness. So it has to go down to that deep subconscious level, and it can be in this life, it can be in past lives, it can go all the way back to the beginning of time. So that's the work that I do, and it's so powerful. And then, once I get there, it's like, oh, I love your red polka dot blouse. It's really cute. I think I'm going to buy one. So yeah.
Isn't it amazing how as we change, then different things change? Like we could read a book again 10 years later and we read it completely differently, or the same thing with watching a movie
Yes.
or yeah, or a polka dot blouse. It's like our perspective changes depending on us.
Yeah. And that's true in terms of how we see humans. There were, I spent most of my adult life just really not being able to get along with my mom, judging her all the time, thinking she was just, this horrible person. And when I realized what she was mirroring to me, all of a sudden I could love my mother, which was really miraculous. And she didn't change. It was just my perception of her and what I shifted in myself to love myself. So yeah, it's amazing to see how things shift just by changing how you're seeing them.
Hmm. Yeah, our relationship with our parents is such a great example because I can tell you how mine went, and I feel like it's pretty common. You grow up as a little kid, you think that they're basically God. Like they know everything and they're in charge. You feel safe with them. And then you start to realize later on in life that they're only human and that
Yeah.
they're doing the best that they can. And then you reach a point where you're like, huh, and you're realizing the things that are wrong with you and where they came from, which is a lot of them are from your parents. So then you have a little bit of, man, why did they do that or say that? Now I have this. And then you kind of grow out of that. And then it's just like this unconditional love and understanding.
Yeah. And, just to kind of go back to what I was saying, they can't do anything to us to cause us to be a certain way. We buy into that. In other words, I used to judge my, this is kind of a strange, funny duality too. I would judge my mom because she was so judgmental. Okay. Mirror, mirror.
Uh-huh.
But she didn't cause me to be judgmental because she was judging. I bought into that for some reason. Why would I buy into that and become judgmental? Because I was judging myself. If I didn't have that already inside of me, she could be as judgmental as she wants, and I would just go, "Oh, yeah, my mom's judgmental. Okay." So yeah, we are responsible. We arrive here with all of that stuff ready to be triggered so that we can go, "Oh, it's my mom's fault."
How much I love that you talk about past lives too. So I want to talk about that a little bit and how much of that influences our life today. Are we born with some of these beliefs?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have lifetimes of things that we've brought with us. Some of it, I always talk about the fact that we choose our parents and we choose our lifetime that we're going to lead based on what we need to resolve and clean up and experience as well as bring to other people. So if I did something in a past lifetime and I've made negative decisions about myself, I will choose this lifetime with parents and situations and even geographical locations to help me get in touch with it again, have it mirrored to me so that I can resolve it, so that I can realize, oh, wow, I did that horrible thing in the last life. So now I'm with the same people that I did it to, and I'm here to clean that up. I'm here to have them help me remember it by mirroring it to me so I can clean it up. So yeah, there's yeah, tons of stuff that we bring with us.
Would you say that we inherit some of our parents then, some of whatever they have from their parents and their parents? Is it passed on through the cells in our body or through our genetics?
You know, I have mixed feelings about that. Yeah, on a physical level, sure, there's that stuff that's going on. Excuse me, but we still chose them. We still chose the inheritance, so to speak, that we're going to bring with us. So, my parents um, had certain things that they needed to learn and go through and experience. So I would choose them so that they would help me go through and learn things and experience things. So in that sense, it's kind of inherited. Yeah.
It's like you don't even really know where it came from, but it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
What role does fear play in self-sabotage and limiting beliefs?
100%. Yeah, there's a part of us that is afraid of success because it goes back to I don't deserve success. So I can't allow myself to experience it. I can't allow myself to manifest it. If I were to manifest it and I were to have sudden success or love or whatever, there's a part of me that believes I have to sabotage that because I don't deserve it. So it's much easier to just be afraid of it. I always talk about our deepest fear is not fear of losing love. Our deepest fear is fear of having love. Because if we were to have love, it would mean that we're deserving, and we can't allow that. There's a part of us that says, no, no, no. You can't have love. You can't have success because you don't deserve it, because last time you destroyed it and this time you'll destroy it too. So let's just keep it away.
What a game we signed up for.
I know, it is funny.
So, okay, I love that example of I don't deserve. So, let's say that someone thinks that they don't deserve success and they want to go from feeling like they don't deserve success or having that belief to having the belief that they deserve, huge amounts of success. How do we go from A to B?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying before. You've got to dig up the origins. You've got to find where you decided I don't deserve success.
You
And
have to let's say you don't remember. You don't have the memory of the first moment, of the 2-year-old that was playing with a toy.
it's there.
Okay.
It is there. And the work that I do helps people remember. It's a meditative technique that I've developed where I help them get in touch with those precise memories. And honestly, it takes a while. It's not something that's instant. It's not something that you just, wave the magic wand and poof, you feel deserving. Um, because people resist it. People don't want to think they can remember something when they were 2 years old, and they don't believe that they can remember their birth experience or past life experiences. But it is there. It's all imprinted in us. And it's just a matter of, taking one layer at a time. There are some past lifetimes that I've been working on for, you know, 30 years, and I keep discovering more about them and keep digging deeper and resolving more and having more things manifest in my life because of that work. It's phenomenal. It really is.
Okay, so we start by peeling back the layers. It takes time. You would do it through meditation practice.
Mm.
Probably, is it more like a guided, like a visualization?
It's not really visualization. It's teaching people how to trust what comes into their mind. So, for example, if I'm working with someone and they're wanting to deal with their fear of success, I would slowly take them back and have them trust whatever comes up. I don't say, well, go to when you were 2 years old. I just allow what comes up. And it could be that they need to look at something when they were 10 years old. And, you know, the next process could be going further back and further and further and further. Some people are able to just jump right into past lives and they have no problem with it. But I find that you really need to look at both. You need to look at the current life as well as past lives, because locating the trigger that happened in this life can help you go further back into the past. Locating the past can help you look at your current life as well. So it's all interconnected.
Can this work for skeptics and people who doubt this type of work?
Oh, yes, I've had many. In fact, I would say at least 75% of my students start out as skeptics.
Wow.
Some are hungering for it. Some people have started, exploring this kind of stuff and they're more open to it. But even people that are open to it, sometimes you gotta get a bigger shovel and help them dig. Um, One of the most phenomenal students I've ever had was probably the number one skeptic that I've ever had in my class. He came to my class because his wife insisted that he come, which is, red flag number one. You don't want to come because your wife forced you here. So every single word I said, he would look at me like this. Oh, yeah? And he'd ask questions from that place of, well, I'm going to prove you wrong, lady. And after 20 weeks, he suddenly started to soften and he started having really interesting experiences in his meditation. And he got it and it was phenomenal. And it was like the world exploded for him. And now he's on Facebook a lot and I see him posting things like little quotes, very spiritual quotes that, when he started the classes, he would be scoffing at that kind of stuff. And now he just loves it. And it's just really interesting to see what happens. Yeah. I think that the hardest people to get through are the people that are really stuck in their I call it middle self, but it's like their logical mind. They can't get past the logic because some of this goes far beyond logic. It's completely experiential and you can't really explain it from a logical place. It's just, wow, I just had this mind-blowing experience. Well, but that doesn't make sense. But it does when you experience it. So it's hard to get past that sometimes.
What are some of the common misconceptions that people will have about doing this type of inner work?
Common misconceptions is that you're going to be sitting on a mountaintop, in your orange robes, just, pondering your or navel gazing, as they call it. And that's absolutely not what this is about. This is about removing the fears and the blocks and the lack of deservingness so that you can take action in your life, so that you can be empowered and trusting and joyful and connecting with people and taking a stand in the world wherever you're led to do it. And I think the most important thing that people have about a misconception is that they think that they're just going to be floating along and just in bliss all the time. And it doesn't work that way. For me and for most of my students, what happens is they become even more inspired to do their purpose, to express why they're here, and to be really out there in the world in some way. So, yeah, I think that's a big misperception about any kind of spiritual discipline. They think, oh, we're just going to be happy and blissful, and that sort of thing. And it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. At least I hope it doesn't.
It reminds me of those memes where it says like what people think it looks like, and it's just someone like peacefully meditating, and then what it actually looks like, and it's someone that looks very frantic and scruffy and
Right.
looks like they've really been through the weeds.
Yeah. That was very disappointing for me when I started my spirit. Well, I've been on a spiritual journey my whole life, really, but when I just really devoted myself to start doing inner work or spiritual work, I was so disappointed because I really thought that's what it would look like, you know? And then it would be, wait a minute, I'm driving home from this beautiful spiritual experience and I'm flipping people off on the freeway and I'm yelling at my son when I get home. No, it's not supposed to look that way. Well, guess what? It is because things were coming up and they were starting to boil and, you know, be recognized in my life. So,
Mhm.
yeah, no bliss.
Yeah. It's like be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
You really get the whole spectrum of emotions and experiences, the highs and the lows
Mm,
and the dark nights and
mm.
yeah.
Absolutely. And that's part of the awakening process. It really is. And it's an incredible teacher. You know, I just, like I said, I was not in touch with my emotions. And when they started to come up, they were my best teachers. They were awakening me to being an empowered human. And what bigger gift is there, really? You know?
You might have just answered this question, but just in case, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned from doing this work for over 4 decades?
The biggest lesson is, sorry about the cliche, but trust the process, because everybody gets it in their own way, in their own time. Um, I used to think, oh, that person didn't understand mirrors. I'm a failure as a teacher. Well, 10 years later, some people contact me and say, ah, I just got it, Royce. You taught me about mirrors and I couldn't get it, and now I did. So it's a process. It really is for people, and there's no failure. I have not failed, and my students have not failed. They're just, I look at it as, I guess it's a an analogy that they talk about in the Bible, that Jesus would plant seeds. I feel like my teaching sometimes just plant a seed and then it takes a while to grow and suddenly it flourishes. So that's been my biggest lesson. And I've learned that because of my own journey. There are some things that I couldn't get either until I could. So trust, trust, trust.
That is so true as far as the seed planting. And you don't even know sometimes when a seed has been planted. I remember when I was introduced to spirituality and all types of different inner work, and I was in my early 20s, and I went on a different route for a while, and then it came back around into my life, and I went deeper at that point. And I just thought, wow, all these things now I'm pulling all these tools out that I never thought I would use again or that I would need or that would
Mhm.
have any relevance to me. And now here it is showing up in my life again.
Some people took my classes when they were single or when they had children or as they got older. And every stage of life brings more lessons and brings more experiences, and people can get it deeper.
Do you talk about the Saturn return at all?
I don't know what that is.
Generally, Saturn return is something really uproots your life twice in your lifetime, and it could be like a big career shift, or you move across the country or to another country, maybe. Maybe your marriage ends or a long-term relationship. It's something, and sometimes all of those things at once can happen at during these times. And it's like you can either ride the wave or you can fight against the current, but depending on how you approach this is it will kind of steer you, it'll be either a smoother transition or it could be more rough.
I am not really big on astrology. It's just not ever pulled me toward it. So I'm not familiar with that. But I'm actually, right now, I was exposed to a video that this very incredibly wise, very grounded astrologist did with a woman who is an intuitive. And I watched this thing, and usually my skeptic antenna goes high. I have a huge skeptical part of me. And as I was watching this, I thought, wow, this is really true. And they were talking about the fact that all the stuff that's going on the planet right now is leading us to, interestingly enough, March 29th, when there's this big cosmic event that's going to be happening. And she described it as some sort of energetic shift that's going to be happening based on other planetary things going on. And I'm describing it terribly, but keep in mind that there's some kind of big shift going on. And I keep talking about that. I don't use planets or any of that stuff to explain it, but I find that the same thing that happens to us when big, huge change is about to happen is we get stuck and fearful and hopeless and, oh, nothing is ever going to work. Same thing is happening on a planetary level. We have a lot of political stuff going on that feels like, oh my God, this is hopeless. There's no way it's going to change. Oh my God, how did we elect this? Why are we going through this? You know, and to me, it's just, okay, we're getting deeper. We are finding truth that we've been in denial of for centuries on this planet, and it's time to wake up. And what better way to wake us up than to shake us up? The shake and wake thing that I always talk about with my students. So, it is happening. And I've never heard the Saturn returns thing, but that's interesting. It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And what you're talking about is also a mirror, it sounds like. It's like it's a mirror for the collective consciousness.
Yes, we are being shown all of these lies that have been suppressed on a planetary level, and it's the same as what we're doing to ourselves. It's the same mirror. Any judgment that we have about what's happening politically, take a look and see how it's a mirror for us. And the more a lot of us get it, the more things are going to shift. I talk about what I call the 100th monkey theory. It's not really a theory, it's an actual true event. There was a tribe, shall we say, of monkeys living on a very distant island, and they were happily living their lives, eating the fruit from the trees. And all of a sudden, one day, one monkey decided to go to the river and wash his food. Simultaneously, everybody on all the monkeys on neighboring islands that had no idea what he had done, they all started washing their food. So it's that sort of thing. One person gets it, one monkey gets it, and we all get it, or the vast majority of us get it. One of us shifts and everything shifts. So, let's be those monkeys, be those mirrors.
Group think. I think it's the group think. Yeah, it's proof that we're all connected consciously.
Yeah, yeah.
I have two closing questions for you, but before I ask them, where can the listeners go to work with you, to listen to your podcast, or see more of your work?
Well, I've got two podcasts on Om Times, and they're both on Wednesday morning. One of them is called The Perfect Life Awakening Show. That's the name of my teachings, Perfect Life Awakening. And the other is called It's All Mirrors, but you can find me at perfectlifeawakening.com or roycemorales.com. I write lots of articles for various magazines. Um, I've written several books, and right now I'm in negotiations with a literary agent to get them published by a real publisher. So I'm not allowed to talk about that, but keep your fingers crossed out there. And that's the best way to find me, roycemorales.com.
RoyceMorales.com. Great. All
Yes.
of that will be in the show notes, of course. And my first question for you is, what is your number one health tip? So it could be anything: diet and nutrition, spiritual, emotional, physical, the one piece of advice that you would like everyone to know.
Well, it goes back to what I keep talking about. If we are suppressed, if we have suppressed emotions or suppressed beliefs or suppressed guilt, it's going to show up physically. There's nothing that you suppress that doesn't come out in some sort of physical way, whether in our bodies or in others reflecting it to us. So just keep looking and going deep. And, I've had students resolve amazing physical situations just by doing the inner work. Um, just a quick story. I was working with one of my students. She called me up frantically one night and she said, "Oh my God, I was told that I have to have an emergency appendectomy tomorrow. Can we process?" And I said, "Okay." So we got together and I helped her dig into what was really going on and what it was really about. And of course, it went all the way back into past lives. And she went to the hospital the next day to have the appendectomy, and they said, "You don't need an appendectomy, you're fine." So it's even this it works on a physical level. It's pretty miraculous. It really is. So keep digging.
I love the work that you're doing because I completely believe in it. It's all of it's so deep in us. It's all energetic. I mean, all of our physical symptoms are manifestations of something much deeper.
Yeah. And it can happen instantly too. I remember a time that in the middle of the night, in the middle of the summer, I heard the rain start. It was 2 in the morning. It was pouring rain. And I had a car that I had left the top off. And in my pajamas, I ran outside. I'm soaking wet and I'm putting the top on my car. And I heard this little voice say, "Oh, you're going to get sick." And I felt my throat tighten up and I started to cough. And I thought, "Oh no, I'm getting a cold." And I realized, wait a minute, whose voice was that? It was my mom's voice, of course. And I said, "No, I don't need to get sick. That's a belief. You don't have to get sick because you're soaking wet in the middle of the night." And my throat relaxed and I was fine the next day. So it can be that quick. It really can.
Oh my gosh, I love that story.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, we are so powerful.
Yes,
My
we are.
my final question for you, it's going to be more of a personal question. You get to choose a number 1 through 100 and it will correlate to the question.
Do I tell you
Yeah, tell
okay.
me the number.
Well, 13 is my lucky number.
All right, 13. How do you prioritize meaningful connections in your life?
How do I prioritize meaningful connections? Um, Openness, authenticity, um, trust, being willing to really share deeply with somebody, um, and their willingness to reflect back to me whatever it is that I need to see. So I hope that answers the 13 question.
March 29th. I'm glad that this is coming out after that. So then we'll be able to see what happened on March 29th.
Yeah, yeah, I'm so intrigued by it. I really am. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
feel it now. I really do. I feel like although it's supposed to be on the central point of it's supposed to be the 29th, I feel like we're going through it now already, whatever it is.
Yeah, I have been seeing different videos and things about some type of energetic thing that's happening
Yeah.
from different spiritual gurus and things.
Yeah. Well, there is simultaneously, interestingly enough, which they didn't mention on this video, is there's a solar eclipse that day.
Mm,
So it's all interconnected.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We it is all connected for sure. Thank you so much, Royce Morales. This has been lovely. As I said, I love your work. Thank you for doing all that you do.
You
I mean, you're healing, the masses by one getting to work with people on uncovering these beliefs, which is
know,
incredible work. I have goosebumps just talking about it. So thank you
yeah.
again. Thank you for
Thank
coming on.
you. You keep up the good work too. Thank you.
Thank you.